This video made use of AI to dub the audio from Punjabi to English, but we have not used AI to change or alter anything anybody has said in this video, and all of the words that you hear are direct translations of the original speech. Off the back of a string of hit songs, Sidhu Moosewala had gone from a small-town kid to one of India's biggest music stars. He'd found fame and fortune through his talent, but interestingly, he wanted to do much more with this gift than just getting rich and famous. Sidhu would explain in an interview that he ultimately decided to get into politics to improve the circumstances in the village he came from, launching a bid to become the head of his village so that he could better direct the money spent on developing his community. Explaining that now he's rich, he would love to pay to feed everyone in his village, but he needs to do things in the official way to make true, lasting change.
That is why we decided to contest in the elections to be ahead of the village. Now we can do the work, but we are still limited. Whenever we have to pitch in personally, we are doing it. Now our gym is very important for the community.
People say there are other big villages in different districts.
Some say Sidhu only cares for his own village.
You know, we used to think we would be able to do it all, but whenever you need to get a bill passed, it needs to go to the ADC, then to the MLA, and then whoever else after that. That's the issue.
Can't you spend it out of your own pocket?
How much can I pay from my own pocket?
People say Sidhu has a lot of money.
Tell me the amount that I should spend. If you say give 4 million rupees and everyone in the village will be fed, I will do it.
You left Canada and come back to the village because you love it so much. Is there something you're planning to do for the village?
Brother, I am already doing it. You know how people act when they come back from abroad. I am taking ownership of my responsibility and will continue to do so, whether we get the village leadership or not.
So you would always keep working towards the development of your village?
Yes, always.
Yes, Sidhu had become famous recording music in Canada. He wanted to come back to his humble village of Musa to try and make things better. And while it would be a few years before Sidhu would really immerse himself into politics, his political career started when he began campaigning on behalf of his mother, Charan Kaur, who was contesting for the post of Sarpanch, or president, at Musa village in the Mansa district. Sidhu would use his fame and notoriety to bring out fans and spread word of the campaign for his mother. And Sidhu was praised for attending the local campaigns regardless of his superstar reputation. He was credited by the Indian News for wearing his casual attire and remaining humble when supporting his mother, and the village would praise Sidhu for being humble enough to join them in person despite being a megastar at this point. Sidhu had shared the proposals for his mother's candidacy, including her plans to improve Musa with improvements to drinking water and sewerage in the village, and the family also agreed to take a harsh stance on the distribution of drugs within the local area, as in recent years, Punjab has been suffering through an opium epidemic which has resulted in many farms being ruined and families being subject to severe poverty, with stories of boys as young as 12 years old pushing drugs in the streets of the Punjab. And there's no lack of supply, as these drugs are mostly imported from Afghanistan, fresh from the source and extremely pure. Now this issue has become alarming, with the United Nations even commenting on how bad the situation's got. The problem is so rife that even pharmacies are allegedly dishing out opiates quicker than the dealers, with many not even requiring a prescription. And it's been said that the government and or the police may even be playing a part in spreading opium in the community, sometimes referred to there as fiend. And there'd been minimal efforts to tackle the problem and aid the region, despite the formation of an anti-drugs task force and rehabilitation centres. But the issue has become so normalised that some Punjabi politicians are even calling for the legalisation of opium, claiming that it's actually part of the culture. Sidhu and his family felt very strongly about overcoming the opium epidemic, and in one interview, Sidhu also shares this as the reason that he never promotes drugs or alcohol within his music. Sidhu understood his influence over the youth, and he didn't want to make getting wasted look cool. And this could well have been a subtle dig at Karan Aujla, who famously was part of a series of songs all about getting wasted, with a music video filmed in a liquor store called Alcohol. Now Sidhu also shared his plans to star and produce in Punjabi movies with positive messages to the youth. And in just 2 years of being an entertainer, Sidhu had his eyes on the top. He had already cemented himself as a star in music, he was now getting his feet wet in politics, and even planning to take on the film industry. And forget about being the Indian Tupac, Sidhu was now trying to become the Desi Arnold Schwarzenegger. This campaign turned out to be a success, and Sidhu's mother would actually win the election, beating her rival by 600 votes, and indeed becoming the president of the village. And this shows the influence and power that Sidhu Moosewala's family now had over the local area. Even in the West, a female politician winning an election can sometimes be seen as a sign of progressive success. But in Punjab, this woman winning the election was a huge deal, and not everyone would be happy about it. During this time, news of Sidhu's success and brash style had become making the rounds internationally, with many media outlets voicing their negative opinions on Sidhu, showcasing guns and violence in his music videos and lyrics, with some journalists even calling out Sidhu and the other rising Indian rappers as fake gangsters, questioning their street credibility and suggesting they'd never even touched guns, with this Canadian news outlet bashing South Asian artists for rocking the gangster image. However, local statistics kind of paint a different story, suggesting that in fact South Asian gangs in Canada are in fact incredibly deadly, responsible for a third of the violence in British Columbia. Canada in fact has a very deep and dark history with Canadian Punjabi gangs. For example, the notorious kingpin Bindi Johal and the several murders that he had allegedly committed and was connected to. He would often appear in news interviews and walk around freely, with his gang empire described by one outlet as something like a startup that scaled too fast. He was responsible for creating the Punjabi Mafia, who terrorized the streets of Vancouver in Canada through the 90s. His crew became infamous in the streets, and Bindi himself became so famous that he was actively being followed by news teams for updates on his murder cases.
Are you worried about your safety in India?
I never worry about my safety. My safety is no problem.
And what about the shootings last night?
Just move the camera. You might have to worry about your safety.
Hey, get that thing out of the face, or I'll rip it right off your head. I don't give a okay? Get that thing.
He would go viral before being viral was even a thing, telling news reporters that the streets need to be scared because he's still around.
These guys to know you got another thing coming. I'm still around.
Unfortunately, he's no longer around. And just like every other high-profile crime boss, eventually things would come crashing down, as Bindi Johal was eventually gunned down in a nightclub in 1999. Perhaps due to these past issues with violent gangs, the Canadian media would prefer to keep any violent influence off the streets, and that included Sidhu Moosewala's raps about shooting ops and toting guns. But at this point, he was just getting started, and after a wild 2018, having reached the top of the Punjabi music scene and going toe-to-toe with another rising Indian rap star, releasing a classic album, and then using his fame to launch his mother into political power into his village, moving into 2019, Sidhu would keep that momentum going and set brave new levels for his music career. But the problem was, as he got more and more famous, he got more and more controversial, and his music would get increasingly violent with more and more lyrics about firearms. Combining that with his Sikh principles, warrior mentality, and lyrics calling upon the next generation of youth to rise up, the increasingly political Sidhu Moosewala might just become a problem for those who were really in charge.